This is going to be a discussion about if Superman can actually have a good video game. I stole this idea completely from someone else. I've been thinking about it all day, and then I bugged Calvin Calv about it like an hour ago and gave him 20 minutes. But in fairness, it's something I do constantly, and I almost never have any follow up with it, so he probably didn't think about it at all.
It's not true.
Okay.
I figured you were actually going to do this one.
Superman gets kind of a bad rap, I think. I think a lot of comic book characters in video games get bad raps because they get kind of marked as you can't have a good video game with this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. Batman has had many games, and the only time he actually had a good game was when Rocksteady made it, Arkham Asylum.
That's not true, because in the 80s he had a game on Nintendo that was really hard, but it was actually a pretty good game. I think people like to forget that.
Most of the time they weren't the best. I mean, and I'm sure I enjoyed the Superman 64 game.
I think it's because they're cash grabs. They just put their brand on it, and they don't give a shit what games they are, so they don't care. I think that's why. I think Arkham was the first series that really took the idea seriously, and that's why it was so successful.
Yeah.
Okay, really? Now your idea for a Superman game is what?
I think if you're going to have a Superman without being cheesy, like beginning of the game, similar to what was it? Prototype 1, or I think it's 1. Where they're like, look at how powerful I am, and then that was just the future. Let's go flash back to him being less powerful. Or something like he's powerful and then like he has his powers stolen, and so then he has to find his powers or something like that, which is an option, but it seems kind of cheesy.
Yeah. And I think how cheesy it is, I did not play Prototype 1 for very long, and I did not like it because they started out in God mode, and then I had to build up. And I'm like, shortly after that ended, well, maybe not shortly, I think I made it a little bit further, but you give them everything, and then they take it away, and I lost interest relatively quickly after that. So I don't like that idea all that much, but go ahead.
Doing something similar to like Action Comics, where it was just kind of him at the beginning of his Superman career, kind of like Batman Origins, kind of like he has a little bit, but he's testing things out. So he's kind of, maybe he has these powers, but he hasn't really played with them very much. And so you're using them and you're getting stronger as you use them and play around with them. And maybe some of them, maybe he only has, I think originally in Action Comics, he might have not even had flight. So maybe he just has super speed and super jumping. And then eventually he gets, super jumping evolves into flight, super speed and stuff like that. And that's why, I mean, definitely like a RPG upgrade type system for his powers. I don't know how that would be structured, but it's definitely one of those things. I even think one of the other ideas with that is because it's Superman, and kind of the two things play off each other. It's like a day-night cycle, because everybody knows his solar regeneration thing. So if he fights at night,
I don't think everybody knows. I think it's more commonly known, but I don't think it's.
All right. Well, in case people don't know, the whole thing is that Superman absorbs sun radiation, and essentially he's a battery, and so he stores it, and that's what allows him to use his powers and stuff. Yeah. And so that's why, like somebody like Parasite, who eats energy, like he fought. I think there's one story arc or something where he fights Parasite at night or something, and like he just eats his energy, and now he can't get any of it back because it's nighttime, so he's like on the run from Parasite. But like having like day-night cycles, like it doesn't have to be like days passing, like, oh, it's Monday, now it's Tuesday, but like having a day and night cycle would make it interesting for conservation of your energy, so you're not just like going around laser visioning everything. And also kind of something, because unlike Batman, who is always Batman, like that's, people only care about Batman, like the whole thing about Superman is not necessarily that he's Superman, it's also the Clark Kent stuff. So playing off a story that kind of deals with both Clark Kent and Superman, I think would be a really good idea. I mean, it'd be a little harder to balance, but it would bring more out of the character than just, I don't know, like just Superman running around is fun, but I think there could definitely be a bigger depth to the story involving Clark Kent.
I think there are two things people like to forget. Superman's enemies are based on how strong he is. Like, he is a alien and a god, and he fights aliens and gods. Like, Batman's a crazy guy who dresses up in a costume. He fights crazy guys who dress up in costumes. The Flash is super fast. His villains are mostly super fast or guys to slow him down. His enemies play to his skill set. So I think this whole basis that he's too powerful is a little misleading, because you're not going to have, okay, Superman's final end villain is going to be the Joker, where he goes and he wins. Like, his end villain's going to be Darkseid, Doomsday, Lex Luthor in his mech suit or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's entirely cheesy to play off of Kryptonite. You don't want to do it nonstop. You want to have it limited. But I think, especially if you do have like one of the mid-game enemies be Lex Luthor, and he decides to use Kryptonite in some fashion or plot, it's part of Superman. And you can even actually have other Kryptonite crop in and whatever. I think it would be good as kind of an open world-ish game. Not as much like Skyrim open world, but like Grand Theft Auto or an Arkham Asylum, not Arkham Asylum,
Arkham City,
where there's a very strong story that you follow, but it's open world. And I also think it would be really cool if they had open world like a city, like they had Metropolis, and then you could actually fly up and go to like random places like the moon and Apocalypse and other places. And I actually have a different take on it, because you think you need to start off weak and grow strong. And you can have a game where he's a complete badass and you still have strong villains that match him and are complicated, like God of War. Force Unleashed was awesome like that, because it was just so fast paced. I mean, I don't want Superman to be that fast paced, but it's something it could be. You don't need to, I don't think you need to scale him down. In fact, I think it would be actually interesting if you overpower him and then you try and have him, because you were already talking about the importance of Clark Kent, like little scenarios or little side missions and stuff where you're actually Clark Kent, like being a journalist, going and doing reporting, or even silly shit like opening a door, maybe like some sort of mechanic where you have to be very meticulous and careful. The closest thing that I can think of, and I'm sure there's better examples, would be like the Skyrim or Fallout lockpicking mechanic, where you just have to like slowly, meticulously kind of do it, or you're going to crack the pick. Like, you open a door, you have to slowly do it, or you might just accidentally rip the whole thing off and tear down the building. I think it would be better and more interesting if you played on how strong he is and how he has to tone himself down. Like, you see constantly, like, Superman flies up and saves a kitty from a tree. How heroic would it be if he grabbed the cat and squished it like a tomato? So I think it would be more interesting if you played how strong he is, and you try and have like little side missions and quirky little off branches and stuff where you have to be careful with it. I think it's entirely possible. I don't think it's impossible. I think a lot of these games just play to the license and don't give a shit about the actual game. You would have to build a game that would be centered around Superman, and you could have him go up against Brainiac and Darkseid and Lex Luthor and Doomsday.
Metallo, Mr. Mxyzptlk.
The point is Superman has enemies that scale to him. Yes, he would go and try and stop a bank robbery, and this could actually be play into how strong he is. And you have to go in there and you're dodging bullets and you're slapping and punching and whatever is part of the like toning it down, because if you just go full whale and punch a bank robber, you'll cave his head in. Like, you have to tone it down, and like you see it constantly in Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball in general, where they ramp up the fighting. You have to learn how to control how powerful he is without just going 100% every single time. I think that would be a more interesting concept to play off of than trying to dumb him down.
Well, mine isn't necessarily dumbing him down, starting him from the beginning. So tutorials and I mean, part of that I agreed, because I think there should be destructible terrain like buildings and stuff. I mean, obviously you could pick up cars and buses.
You could still have him be a kid or a teenager like they did in Man of Steel, where he's still not anywhere near as strong as he is. And it would be a better intro to the system of learning how to control your power, where you could easily just grab a door and rip it off by accident. You have to learn how to control it, like they were trying to imply. Mm-hmm. And you could still have it be kind of a scale up thing. I think if you play too much off of how weak he can be and scale it up and dumb him down and stuff, it loses who Superman is. Superman is a very powerful character who has very powerful opponents. I think it would be more fun, like I said, to play onto how strong he is and try and have you learn how to control that instead of trying to slowly ramp it up. I also do think a non-leveling thing to like skill up, like his eye beams and his frost breath and how fast he flies, would be good, and it'd give progression to the game. But I think you would start with all of your powers. Did you actually end up thinking about any of the other ones, any other heroes or whatever villains that would make for good, specifically villains, DC?
But I thought some heroes I could go probably think on for days and come up with great ideas for the Flash. I mean, it's still very much that open world, or at least open city.
I think,
and it's just being done. It's one of those, do it right, like do it. He runs and stuff, and I think the thing is that you can't have him running super fast. Like, it would be limited how fast he can run
yeah, he's
because of
another
how
character
fast
that people feel the
because of how
need to
fast
dumb him
people
down. Well, I want to
how
sidetrack on,
fast he.
and you could have a standalone Nightwing game entirely in the shadow of the Arkham series, and I don't think that's a knockoff at all because he's in that. It would be cool if it actually takes place in Bloodhaven. If like you do the whole game in that fashion in that city instead, and it's entirely based off Nightwing because he's an incredibly popular character too. I mean, he's not Batman. I'll let you talk about Flash. I actually specifically have an idea for Flash, and I want your opinion on it.
But I think one of the things is doing the speed correctly, because I mean it could be fundamentally just open city, him running around, up and down buildings, kind of like DC Universe Online, but instead of making him go really fast and having the buildings fly by him, essentially like he activates a, not necessarily a fast travel thing, but kind of similar to what Assassin's Creed did with the boats, where you're like, oh, this is kind of your traveling speed type of thing, and so like you activate that, and then so essentially it just slows everything down. So you're still, I mean, it still takes you a little bit to get there, but you get there, you're not running and buildings are flying by and you have to be like, oh crap, I missed my turn and now I'm in New Mexico, like type of thing. And so I mean that was really one of the bigger. I didn't really go too far into everybody as to ideas, but as long as they do the super speed correctly and not make it stupid and cheesy.
Here's my thing. It popped in my head like almost immediately, and I've thought about it, and I like can't really see a downside to this. You want Flash to be a character development game where he's like any other game that we've been talking about, where you progress him and whatever. And the thing that popped in my head immediately was, instead of trying to fit this cookie cutter mold of, okay, he's a superhero, he has to fight supervillains, and you have to have a story, I think you should go outside of the box, and what you should make is a Flash game that is just essentially a racing game. You take all of the different Flashes, Barry Allen, Wally West, Kid Flash, Jesse Quick. You can even have in the villains like Professor Zoom, Reverse Flash. Like you could have a bunch of, you could even throw in Superman, and it functions more like a racing game where you slowly like level up their skills. Like you can acquire different skills like phasing through buildings, maybe slowing down time. Basically have it function where there's this weird event that everybody's coming together who's attached to the Speed Force or not. Maybe even just have people who are strictly attached to the Speed Force. So Superman wouldn't be there, and have it be like the Speed Force race or something like that. It would be kind of silly, but look at how many games Mario's been in that are really stupid when you break down the concept of it, like the kart racing and Smash Brothers and stuff like that. Like, you don't have to take a game incredibly serious. I think if you made a racing game where you had Wally West versus Barry Allen versus Jesse Quick, and it was literally a race, and you could have different tracks where one you go through the city, and one you're actually like running through the cosmos and stuff like that. Like that way you're playing entirely into the super speed. I think that would make a more interesting game than trying to have a beat 'em up role playing adventure game with the Flash. I would be more inclined to play a racing game based on the Flash than I would be anything else.
I think that would be a good like mobile game idea, like the Temple Run games, or where you're just running forward.
Why? You've never played a racing game?
No, hell no. That is like, you're essentially breaking him down to all he does is go fast. Like he has nothing else going for him, that he's not a developed character who's been around for 75 years. He just runs fast. That's all he does.
But I think the point is you're taking it too serious. I think it would be a not very serious game. It would just be a fun game, like a Smash Brothers.
That's why I think it could be like a mobile
game.
game. Like they have one for Batman versus Superman, where like you're Batman and like you run and you have to pick up coins or something. Like it's some amusing thing, and you could have some kind of racing type game where you can even compete against friends or whatever for lap times or something. I'm not saying if you're going to build, like, I'm thinking like Arkham Asylum level game, not even, it doesn't even have to be exactly like that, but that caliber of game. A racing game is not going to be that caliber for the Flash.
But even you said you would have to tone it down. You would have to dumb down to super speed. You have to be quirky about it. And then you're getting into cookie cutter. You're getting into, not cookie cutter, you're getting into very specific markets. Do you think he would play well again? Like, would you rather play a Flash game? Well, I mean, you would, but I mean, from the average consumer, Flash or Batman if they're run exactly the same? Batman's going to outsell him 10-1. I think if you put him in a racing game, it gives him his own little niche. I think you're wrong. I think you could have a full-out AAA type of game based on the Flash that is just a racing game where you have tracks, you have 1 to 4 players, and you all get together and you have these huge super speed fights. I think that would be a fun game to play. I would play that game. It would be different.
The point is it's not Batman. It's a different story. The Flash's story or Superman's stories. It's liking the character, not making it some cheesy interpretation. Just making he runs fast. That's what he does.
My favorite DC character gets made fun of because he talks to fish. That's all he does is talk to fish.
And that's because of Super Friends.
I know.
A Flash game where literally all they do is run is doing the same thing, but in video game form.
I don't think so.
You're just literally saying that all he does is run, and that's all there is to him as a character.
It would be fun to have an Aquaman game that would be completely underwater.
There could be parts of it where he has to come on the land.
I think it should take place mostly under the water because it would give it a different feel.
Yeah, I was like swimming through space is the idea. Like, he's swimming and it's essentially flying through the water, but it's like space because, when he stops. So it'd be like flying, but you just have the background look like water.
I think you could do a lot with Aquaman.
Oh yeah, and like you can utilize sea life and fight. So you're like, oh no, and there's like suddenly a squid comes out of nowhere. Like that would be kind of funny, or a shark, or like because he utilizes sea life.
But he doesn't talk to fish.
No, he communicates with them. It's not the same thing.
Just like I communicate with my dog.
Or he commands them.
Well, he probably does it better than I talk to my dog because my dog doesn't listen.
Yeah, well, but they listen to him.
It's a little bit more control to that, but it's not like he sits there and talks about philosophy with fish. He just can communicate with them. And you can get a lot of the characters. There's a lot of really cool characters in the Aquaman mythos.
I'm sure there are.
Like his fiance is a really
wife.
Well, right now in the current run, they're engaged.
Barry and Wally, or Barry and Iris were married, and now they're not. And super retconning.
Yeah.
Mara.
Yeah, but she's a very badass character. It would be cool to have her in there. It would be freaking hilarious to have like just a stupid little like dream sequence where he goes. You have like Ariel and like Little Mermaid characters in there, and then Flounder starts talking to him. And he's like, nope, I don't want this. I don't talk to fish. I don't talk to fish. Or whatever, something else. But that's the first thing that popped in my head was the Little Mermaid because Flounder talks. Anyways, Aquaman could take Superman. It's Superman's popularity that makes people think Superman would kick his ass.
Oh, I know how powerful he is. He fights Cthulhu on a yearly basis. Really interesting side mission in that game, though, where you have to go and fight Cthulhu, essentially. That'd be kind of entertaining. Because that actually apparently that's canon in the comic books. Like, every year, breaches through and tries to invade our world, and Aquaman, it's under the ocean, and Aquaman has to stop him, and every year he fights him and pushes him back, and it looks like Cthulhu. Green Lantern I think would be really cool, where it could be similar to like Mass Effect, because you got to go. He patrols. I mean, he patrols Earth, but he's part of the Green Lantern Corps. So you can go to other planets and do missions on other planets, and you could have that could be a squad co-op type game.
So we've talked about Prototype. You could have kind of concepts from Prototype where you can morph your hand and stuff because it's
true.
Mechanically, it would be very, very similar. Mm-hmm. Visually, it would be a lot different.
Maybe the Green Lantern Corps, something happened, Sinestro shattered the Green Lantern Corps or something, and so you have to build the Corps back up or something. So you have to go to other planets to recruit new Green Lanterns to strengthen it to as part of like a story. But you get to go to other galaxies and new planets and stuff. So that would be really cool. Like Martian Manhunter, he's another one that.
If anybody makes it this far into the video, if you have any thoughts on it, what would make a good Superman game, Flash game, Aquaman game, or any DC character in general, especially if you're a fan of Flash, do you think Flash would be better in a game where it's centric about a story, or just a kind of silly racing game? Because I think a racing game would be awesome.